What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another combo edition, unplanned, of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. So this is going to be the 618th episode of the Hot Tags, and it's going to be the FASTLANE Pay-Per-Viewpoint predictions. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, Robert E. Felice.
Hello, welcome to the FASTLANE predictions, where we will talk about how the bloodline has jumped the shark.
And Callum Wiggins.
And then we might also talk a little bit about Wrestle Dream, where the Adam Cole and MJF story has jumped the shark.
All these sharks. There's blood in the water. There's lots to talk about for lots of different things, and especially because it is a combo edition. If you checked back on the Wrestle Dream podcast, the last podcast that we did, you could hear that I was having trouble breathing. I'm still having trouble breathing. So I ultimately decided not to do the FASTLANE predictions in a separate video on Wednesday because I thought giving myself a little bit of extra sleep might help, but no. So we're doing that today, combo, to make sure that we get these things done because I'm at least able to, talk enough for that. If that changes midway through, then these guys will finish hosting and I will sit back and whatever. But we are going to talk about FASTLANE first. Then we're going to get into some CM Punk stuff and some stuff about NXT and Title Tuesday for AEW and all. So there you go. See, another breath like that. So as we go along here and we do that, obviously you leave your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you are subscribed to this YouTube channel. If you are listening to us on YouTube, hit the like button and check off that little notification bell. Once you ring that, you get your email alert set up. Then you know when we will go live for the FASTLANE post show tomorrow. God, it's tomorrow. Oof. Yeah. Not looking forward to necessarily doing all that work. But hey, if I'm feeling good enough, we'll have a post show. And of course, if you want to help us out on the monetary side of things, maybe offset these stupid pills that I'm taking and all that going forward. Oh, that sounds awful that I'm putting that out there. Hit the thanks button on here. Click the join button. Get access to the same stuff as you have over on the Patreon, which apparently has a new logo, which looks awful. I'm not a big fan of that little paintbrush. Paintbrush.
That's one of the worst rebrands I've seen. Not a fan.
Patreon 2.0.
It's I think it's their third logo. Because they used to have that P.
It might as well be NXT 2.0 level ridiculousness though.
Yeah. So
either way, you should be donating because Mark works hard and Tony needs it. So do it.
We have something coming up soon for Guest 5. He had originally requested Impact 1000, and I was planning on doing that on Tuesday, and that didn't happen for obvious reasons. But we are going to try to do something based off of that, or if not, you might see something over there on fanboysanonymous.com. But also Redbubble and TeePublic are when you can pick up some merchandise if you want that. And I think that we should probably just start getting into FASTLANE now to do that first section of this. And we only have 5 matches on the card currently scheduled, so that's already not a full card, which means maybe we'll get something added on SmackDown tonight. We're missing lots of championships on here, but then again, some of them are already SmackDown matches, so it's not like there should be an adjustment to add something with, say, the Bloodline or with the Women's Championship, because we already know that we're getting a match with that, and you got a 6-man tag based off of SmackDown. So they didn't announce anything extra on Raw, but 5 matches is not their normal amount. It's anywhere between 6 and 8. And if it is 5 matches, that's usually because it's something like the Royal Rumble where, a match is going to go on for an hour plus or something. So we don't have any gimmick matches here that are going to take up an hour and then another one that's going to take up 45 minutes and another one that's going to take up an hour or something. They've got a lot of time to kill. First things first, do you guys think there are any matches that make sense to be added to the card?
It just occurred to me that there's not another episode of Raw to add the Fatal 4-Way for the Women's Championship between Raquel, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, and Rhea Ripley. That's where I thought they were going, but I guess they're not doing that.
No, and they didn't bother to announce anything when they were having that little scuffle on Raw. So it's been, a couple days since then. They didn't put something out on like the Raw Talk episode to go, well, by the way, it's been made official. And it'll be a little bit weird if they just sort of announce tonight, like, Michael Cole and company are just sort of like, oh, and by the way, this has been also added to the card. They could. I mean, they've done that before, but I don't think we're going to get necessarily like Drew McIntyre versus The Miz added in there, or we already had the Gunther and Tommaso Ciampa Intercontinental title match. They took that off the pay-per-view to put it over to here instead. Unless we just get some random, like, hey, we're putting, actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. I was going to say we're putting the Tegan Nox and Becky Lynch thing, but no, that's booked for Monday Night Raw. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything that they would be adding.
I mean, all things considered, it's fine the way it is. They've got John Cena's on the card. They got a big bloodline match. There's a championship last man standing match, a chance to cash in, a major tag team title match. Like, it's a solid card for what they're giving you.
But they do have more time to kill with that. So what do you do with the rest of that time? Do they just do Grayson Waller effect again and have like
Jade? We can talk about that. She's supposed to be at the show according to PW Insider.
Oh, that's the thing. I didn't even see that was
They
rumored.
could bring her in on like a promo spot. There's plenty of different ways you can bring Jade in.
You could just have like a random like superstar come out, like a Shotzi or Selena Vega or something like that, just comes out to the ring, like saying they've got an unannounced match scheduled, and then it's like Jade's whether her new music is hits, and she just beats them quickly and comfortably and just announce stuff there. Or you could just do a Grayson Waller effect or some other kind of Miz TV segment or something just to announce her presence in the company. So that could eat up a good 15-20 minutes of the show.
Yeah, I think that could be a fun way to do it. Like, Miz gets all excited. Big Drew McIntyre, he didn't want to be on Miz TV. I got a star. And I'm going to do it right because the A-listers on Fastlane. Here's Jade Cargill.
Is the information out on Peacock yet about when this press conference thing that they were they are planning to do one of those, aren't they?
Probably not, no.
I thought that they had announced something like that. I'm trying to double check it now.
I hope not.
Let's see. Fastlane shows up as being a 4-hour show that starts at 7.
You know what else starts at 7? AEW Collision for some reason.
You think that's specifically counter programming? We'll talk about
I
later,
think the counter programming will be that John Cena will kick off the show.
For Fastlane to try to convince people that if they bought this that they shouldn't not tune in, that kind of thing.
Nobody bought it. People have Peacock.
Yeah, you buy Peacock a month, I wouldn't have Peacock if it wasn't for the WWE shows, that's for sure.
But yeah, I think you could introduce Jade. I think you could also just have the matches go along. That's the thing they do.
I really hope that that's not the case where we don't get LWO versus Bobby Lashley and Street Profits for 43 minutes. You know what I mean?
Put Dom against Dragon Lee for the NXT North American title. What's stopping you?
But you've done it like 3 times in the last 3 months or so.
They've got to do it again.
But I mean, I think that. Well, I think that Dragon Lee will be involved in another match on this show, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But I think that I think I'm pretty comfortable with just having 5 matches on the show. I don't think you really need to add that much. Why not just just end it in 3 hours? Like I know it says 4 hours, but end it an hour early. Who cares? Like,
you're preaching to the choir, boss.
If they had the option of just adding a bunch of filler, or if they wanted to make these 5 matches be a 2-hour pay-per-view, I'd be like, just do it 2 hours.
Yeah, 'cause, you know, the only thing they are doing is add filler, because they'll basically because I'm just looking through the SmackDown roster. I can't think of anybody else that would be having a match that's important enough to be on the show unless they want to throw in some other forced Grayson Waller and Austin Theory tag team match against somebody. But
remember COVID where the shows ended at like 9:30? It was so fucking good. It was so good.
But other than that, you'd be like, well, yeah, it would just be a case of announcing something via Twitter on the night of the show saying this is going to be on the kickoff, or we've just scheduled this to take place some random Raw match like I know Bronson Reed versus somebody, because he's probably going to get pushed towards an Intercontinental title match eventually. So have him just beat another guy on the way up there.
All right, fulfilling that prophecy I made for him. I love that Bronson Reed.
But yeah, and I think that, yeah, and I don't think it's worth even speculating what match to be added, because nothing would be realistically majorly storyline convenient for this, because if it was like a major storyline point, they would have booked it prior to us talking about it now.
Maybe they had booked Johnny Gargano against Gunther and they cut it all off since they cut the end of Monday Night Raw. You know, but I don't think that that's the case, because I think we would have seen something put out by now about that. But they might just be approaching this in that stupid kind of way of, let's wait until the day of the pay-per-view and then we're going to announce on Twitter, hey, added to the card is, you know, Ricochet versus Ivar or something. And then you're like, really? Okay. Why? Oh, because we got to kill some time before our Peacock Premium Plus advertisement, and then our other sponsored whatever commercial, and our backstage segment of Paul Heyman saying call Roman Reigns, and our, you know, whatever. It's, if they were to have these matches just be the matches and didn't have a whole bunch of filler, it comes out to 48 minutes that each match would need to be to fill up those 4 hours. And I guess technically, if they're counting it's a 4-hour show on Peacock and it says it starts at 7, that's an hour of the pre-show, so it's just a bunch of nothing. So you got, you know, 3 hours, and if they end at 10, then, yeah, I mean, it's not quite as bad, but you're still, you know, the numbers are still kind of shit for it to be 180 minutes divided by 5 is, what's that, the 30 something or other, 36. So each match being a half hour plus, I don't know. I don't think I really want a half hour of necessarily each of these matches, but some of them definitely will go on pretty long, and entrances, of course, are factoring in too. And I don't know. I don't like the idea of 5 matches on here, but I guess we're going to see about that. So we know at least what these matches are. Let's start getting into what they are. There's a 6-man tag, LWO, against Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. They don't have a tag team name yet, and we don't know who the 3 members of the LWO are going to be. But I would assume it's highly unlikely that it's Rey Mysterio, Santos Escobar, and one of Cruz del Toro or Joaquin Wilde. More than likely, it's Santos and Wilde and del Toro, or they got something else in mind. Are you kind of suggesting maybe it's Santos and Mysterio and Dragon Lee? Or did you have something else in mind?
Yeah, but, well, it would be really weird to just add one of Joaquin Wilde or Cruz del Toro to it. If you're going, like, it should be Mysterio and Santos because they're the 2 big names. And I think it's, you know, I think Dragon Lee, even though he's not won anything in NXT, I think he's more than ready to take the step up. And apparently, you know, there's speculation surrounding that he might be getting fast-tracked to the main roster. And if he is so, then the best place for him is to be in the LWO. So I think, you know, just immediately put him up there. That already makes the match better and more interesting because it's like the 3 bigger stars out of it. Because if you just throw in, if it's Santos Escobar, Joaquin Wilde, Cruz del Toro, then we've basically every week on SmackDown. Not that I'm watching week to week, but I know enough to know that Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro are just getting beaten like a drum every single week. So that won't add any interest to it. And the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley have primarily been targeting Mysterio and Santos. So they should both be in the match, and therefore you should add somebody that can help level the playing field a little bit more. Having said that, I don't think it really matters what configuration of the Latino world order it is. You should have Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits win.
Yeah. I think that there's pretty much no chance that they lose.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter. I just think it would be a better match if Dragon Lee was involved. But either way, yeah, Lashley should get the win, maybe by pinning Mysterio, so it sets up a future United States Championship opportunity.
That's where I could see them doing the Escobar, Del Toro, and Wild thing, because Ray wouldn't be involved, and then it could be like, oh, we're going to save that, quote unquote, you know? Wouldn't shock me.
I think actually the most like crazy thing about this match is Bobby Lashley's wrestling. When was the last time we saw Bobby Lashley wrestle?
This is his first match since he lost to AJ in the World Title Tournament.
Is it? Let's see.
Yeah. Yep. Like WWE is advertising it that way.
Handy dandy cage match. Great website for that stuff. So he's been on house shows, beating Baron Corbin and Karrion Kross in June. And then the last televised one was Bobby Lashley beats Austin Theory and Sheamus on SmackDown May 12th.
Yeah, then he lost to AJ.
Now, apparently wait, that's out of order. That's weird. I guess was that the same day? I don't even remember.
It was the same night. Yeah, it was the same night.
Okay, so then, yeah, it's AJ Styles versus Bobby Lashley after that. Yeah. So, yeah.
I like what you guys are saying, and you guys are right. I think it'd be incredibly silly to do Joaquin Wilde or Del Toro. I think it's Carlito. They signed Carlito like 3 months ago. Where the fuck is Carlito?
That's right. I totally forgot Carlito was kind of hanging around there.
Nobody's expecting Carlito to win. Like,
I think Carlito's just going to be like Eric Young. It'll just be he's been signed, and then they'll just forget that they have him, and then just quietly release him.
I think he's going to be like Eric Young in the sense that he's going to come back and lose. He's going to lose a lot of matches, and perfect add star power. I mean, we're not in Puerto Rico, so he's not going to get that crazy pop, but he is a legend, I guess. Weird to say, but I think it'll be him. I certainly hope it's not Cruz, Del Toro, or Joaquin Wilde, but I will say, for purposes of conversation, between the two, I'd rather Joaquin Wilde.
We're all going LWO stands almost no chance of winning this, though, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It would be a really bad move.
Yeah, so even that is like, they're not yet committing to who in the LWO. They've made a point for like all the graphics to have everybody on there, including Zelina Vega, and they're just referring to it as the LWO against them. So they're either they do know and they don't want to say, or they don't know and they're just sort of like, well, it's this group, so screw you. Do you want to watch it or not? Kind of thing. It might be that they plan on having Carlito or Dragon Lee, or I highly doubt like Bad Bunny or somebody like that, but maybe that's the plan, is to do something like a little bit of a surprise in that way. And that's why they don't want to say it's Ray, Santos, and blank or something, but it should be.
If you add Bad Bunny, it's a hell of a card. If you got John Cena, Bad Bunny, and Cody Rhodes, that'll carry you. Like, that wouldn't be the worst thing, but I can't imagine them not announcing Bad Bunny well in advance.
Yeah. So we have that on the card. We also have a tag team title match when it comes to the Judgment Day. Finn Balor and Damian Priest defending against Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, which is not something that sounds too crazy in the grand scheme. They're telling this story of Cody bringing Jey on the Monday Night Raw, and people like Drew McIntyre being upset about it. And, they've had their cross moments with Judgment Day here and there. And Judgment Day, of course, they're the tag team champions, so they have to defend against somebody in some fashion. I mean, not necessarily on this card, but like, you would think that Judgment Day would be on there because they were the most dominant screen time of anything that's going on at the moment. So they've already milked the Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn thing. a million times. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso makes sense. I don't anticipate them winning the belts, though, by any means.
Theoretically, you give the belts to them, and they're able to go on SmackDown all they please. That's worth thinking about. But no, I think JD McDonough helps again, and then we officially get McDonough in this faction so that we can officially build to War Games at Survivor Series.
Yeah, the likelihood is that the Judgment Day win. They've only been the champions for a short period of time, then usually not in the business of hotshotting most titles. So I think that Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso will take the fall here. They will be in some kind of like shady manner, whether that is JD McDonough or Dominik or Rhea getting involved to help the other side get the victory. Been to see Jay's taken quite a lot of pins as well recently, so it'd be quite interesting to see him taking another loss on this show, because I presume that they wouldn't have Cody get pinned. But
has Cody been pinned since he's been back to WWE?
I mean, yes,
Reigns?
Roman Reigns pinned him.
Oh, I mean, outside of that,
and he got beat by
Brock
Lesnar as well. Yeah,
and Brock Lesnar. That's it.
That's right. Yeah, the whole Lesnar thing happened.
Yeah, they're the only two losses that he suffered because he was injured for about 8 months at one point. So
adversity.
He was just suffering through adversity. That's what it was.
So, but yeah, I see them losing. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think it'd be completely out of the question for them to get the victory because, well, I know Cody's appearing on next week on that special episode of NXT on Tuesday where all the big stars are appearing, and at least what Rob is speculating that he's going to announce that the return of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic.
That's kind of what I'm anticipating too.
Yeah, and if that is the case, what would be a better time to do it if he's holding a tag team title?
You've sold me on the idea of they'll probably win. Now that you put it that way, I think I can see them winning.
You know, I didn't think about the idea of the only thing that if they would have just said
the only thing Cody Rhodes is announcing is the fucking Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic.
That's the only thing that makes any sense because I mean let's actually let me switch over to the hot tag graphic because this is kind of a little bit of a hot tag thing. We'll do this back and forth. I'm okay to click. That is one of the things that is announced for NXT is Cody Rhodes specifically announcing something. They've announced other people are going to be on NXT for other reasons, like we're going to talk about like Asuka and John Cena and all them, but they never said like, okay, well, an announcement for anybody else. It's just Cena's going to be ringside for Carmelo Hayes. Okay, Paul Heyman's going to be there in Braun Breaker's corner, blah, blah, blah. The Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic is the only thing that makes sense for Cody to announce on NXT. And you're selling me on the idea that if he's holding the tag team titles, that makes a lot of sense too. I didn't think about it that way.
I mean, you've honestly not playing around. Like you've changed my prediction. I now think Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso will just win the tag team titles and lose it on the Monday after. He can go to NXT as champion and then lose it on the Monday after.
And that could go into the idea that Judgment Day's been arguing even more so lately. I know it's kind of weird that Dominik just won the North American title back, and then that kind of seems like one step forward and 2 steps back. But, I mean, they keep telling that story, and they don't want to pull the trigger yet on Damian Priest and Finn Balor going at it, but maybe that's the trigger. And I mean, the War Games thing is interesting too, because I'm seeing something around there, people pitching that maybe it's a combo of the Bloodline and Judgment Day, and maybe it's like Cody and Jay, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and like
LA Knight or whatever.
Say like LA Knight, yeah. And then the Bloodline and they're like the heel side would be like Solo, Jimmy, Balor, JD McDonough,
Damian,
like
yeah, well, Balor, Damian, and Reigns.
If they don't split up Balor and Damian.
Oh, well, yeah.
And if they don't have Reigns fight for the championship or something, you know what I mean? I still want Survivor Series to just be Raw versus SmackDown, but Yeah, I mean, now I'm kind of a little bit hesitant, but I'm still going to say Judgment Day retains.
I'm going to say Judgment Day. Since we are doing predictions and it does matter, I'll say Judgment Day retains by way of JD McDonough, but I would not be surprised if something else happened.
Yeah, I mean, Judgment Day is the safe bet at this point. I just don't think that they would change it that quickly.
And of course, obviously, for anybody who's wondering about the fantasy league side of things, tomorrow we'll probably reconvene through Messenger and then see if we change our opinions about anything. And if they add any more matches, of course, too, then we'll have to get our updated predictions on those. But we have another tag team match. We have 2 world title matches, too, to talk about. What do you guys think is going to be the main event? Or at the very least, we know it's not going to be the women's championship match. That sounds dismissive, but it's just not going to be. Let's be honest. You think it's going to be Rollins, Nakamura, or do you think it's going to be Cena and LA Knight?
Well, I already said that because Collision's starting at 7, I see them kicking it off with. They'll kick it off. Look, the Cena match and the last man standing are going to sandwich the thing. I'm going to say they kick it off with John, and then they'll close with the last man standing. And maybe cash in? Possibly.
I mean, they main event the last show with Rollins versus Nakamura, so this is supposedly a more heated version of that match, so it wouldn't surprise me that they main event it again with this one. Yeah, I mean, none of the matches really stand out as like, this is the definitive main event, but that's mainly due to the strength of the card as a whole.
And that there's no Roman, because if Roman's on there, you know by fact that he's going to be the main event. Even if his segment is like Roman does one of those little paddle ball toys or something, and people would be like, all right, main event, you know. They even sell that shit anymore. Is that one of those things that you'd have to find at like some
I'm just imagining Roman Reigns in the middle of the ring with a paddle ball, like, this is how he loses the belt.
He's like 11, 12. Ah, man. Let me start all over again. 1, 2. So let's go into the triple threat then for the WWE Women's not undisputed, but says undisputed championship. And I'm going to say that until they sort that shit out. Io Sky is defending against Asuka and Charlotte Flair because we can just keep recycling the same idea. You know, why do anything different? And if it's why do anything different, I don't think we're necessarily going to see a title change, but if we do, I think it's going to be that Charlotte wins. Definitely not Asuka.
You never count out Charlotte.
No, I mean, we've been burned too many times with the idea of Charlotte can't possibly win this match, and then they give it to her and all. It's not quite the same environment as what it used to be with Charlotte. You know, I mean, they don't
worse.
Have her all the time. Yeah, I mean,
it's worse. No, let's not bullshit here. It's worse. Charlotte pops up, literally goes, I get title shot, and then she does, and then she might lose, and then go away again. I don't know what's been Charlotte's deal since the pandemic, but I have not loved it. And I do love me some Charlotte Flair, but this version, this feels like phoned in, not exciting version of Charlotte. I'm not feeling it. I'd love to see her win and then go on a tear with the title, but if we're telling the truth, I don't know if the current state of the women's division is motivating to Charlotte Flair.
And really, if she wins, who does she go up against for the next couple months? Because you might want to give her the belt for WrestleMania to do either Flair against Belair or Flair against Jade Cargill or something, but
there's
you got months for that
too. If Charlotte wins, is that where Jade shows up? And they just go right to it.
I would be really shocked if Jade makes her debut and it's already in the title hunt.
I wouldn't. Look at the toys we're playing with here. Like there's not a whole lot of steam going on. If you make it feel like, oh my God, Jade Cargill from the other channel is here and she wants to be champion. She's only ever been champion, basically. There's a way to do it.
If you look at SmackDown right now, I mean, they don't have a lot of people. And a good chunk of those people are either inactive or realistically just not somebody who would be having some month plus feud with Charlotte. Or, I mean, the current rundown right now for SmackDown, for anybody that's wondering, just as a quick thing, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. I don't even remember the last time we saw them, but they couldn't even get anywhere in the tag team division. Asuka, who's already in here, B-Fab, who's not even a wrestler, Bayley, who has been hanging around this whole thing, Bianca, who's been gone, and maybe she comes back, and maybe they do Bianca and Charlotte for a little bit, and it's not for Mania or something, but...
If Bianca comes back, then it's Bianca Io.
Could be Bianca Io, yeah. Dakota, as far as I'm aware, is not ready to return, right?
But she's there every week, but she's not ring ready.
Michin is just kind of hanging around. Scarlett doesn't wrestle. Shotzi is on the lower end. Zelina is, she's there, but she's not being really pushed right now. And then there's Tamina, who obviously was not ever really a big thing. And
who is Mina, though?
I'm assuming probably Nia.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's more options on Raw. And unless they were to switch somebody over and they were to take somebody like a Liv Morgan and go, she's ready and we're going to just put her back on SmackDown instead, which that happens every once in a while. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to, but it has happened. I just kind of can't see anything happening here other than Io Sky retaining and potentially trying to go down that Bayley route, because they didn't pull the trigger yet on Bayley versus Io. And Bayley does still keep doing things that gets in her way. Like this whole match was booked because she was like, "Oh, you want a triple threat? You got it." And Io's like, she didn't say that.
I like that Asuka said things in Japanese, and she said, "Yeah, I know you want a triple threat," and you just got Io. That's not what she said. No.
Did anybody translate what she actually did say?
Not that I saw, but I just like that Io's right there going, I speak Japanese. It's not what she said. No, please. But I don't see the Bayley match happening anytime soon. Actually, the more that we talk about it, the more I think, fuck it, Charlotte. That's my pick. Going with Charlotte.
I mean, this doing these predictions has always taught me that bet against Charlotte Flair in a title match. Doesn't necessarily mean that she is going to win, but you feel a bit foolish if she's in a title match and you don't pick her because she's always a safe bet. But I mean, the one thing that there is somewhat certainty about this match is that Asuka's taking the fall one way or another.
100%. Yeah.
Unless you want new women's champion Asuka on your special episode of NXT. That is a thing.
Now, I guess let's bounce to that. Because that is, again, another thing that's happening on NXT. Asuka is going to be wrestling Roxanne Perez. Now, I think that's all the more reason why Asuka's not going to win this, is because that I can't picture her winning the SmackDown Women's Championship. I guess it's not that anymore, but you know what I mean. Winning that title and then having a match against Roxanne and then potentially losing. She might beat Roxanne even if it's a non-title thing and she's not the champion, but actually, that probably is going to happen anyway. Roxanne's probably going to lose, but she'll put up a good fight. They'll probably do that kind of a thing, but I just can't picture Asuka winning that belt and then bringing that to NXT and doing that.
I mean, yeah, I'm mostly joking around, but it is on the table.
I mean, they did announce that, so they at least have that on the radar, But I'm going to go Io. I'm going to say that they do something here where Asuka gets pinned by Io. And then... see that Charlotte thing, though? Goddamn. I'm like, but then what do you do with Charlotte? Okay, Charlotte, if she doesn't have the title, she pretty much doesn't do anything. So then you either just... Charlotte disappears.
Charlotte goes away again, or he wins the championship.
Well, or... this is a triple threat match. You you have Charlotte look like she's going to win. She gets screwed out of it by Damage Control, and then you get the one-on-one match with Io at Crown Jewel or at Survivor Series, one way or another. And then that's where Charlotte wins when you do it one-on-one. So this could just be a delaying tactic. You keep the title on Io for a little bit longer, but the inevitable is always coming in the form of Charlotte Flair holding a women's title. I mean, I'm pretty firm in my conviction that Charlotte is going into WrestleMania as a women's champion.
Yeah, I still think
either defending against Bianca, or if this Jade Cargill thing, and they decided to just immediately strap the rocket to her. But the likelihood before the Jade signing would be that it's going to be Charlotte versus Bianca at WrestleMania. So yeah, it just depends when you are going to put the title on Charlotte. And considering the fact that I'm not too keen on like what she's been doing into in-ring work, pretty much everything this year she's done has either disappointed or underwhelmed me outside of the match with Rhea at WrestleMania. So I would be happy for her to delay the inevitability of her winning the title until as late as possible. So I would predict that Io is going to win this match here, but I think that it's just a 1 or 2 month delay until what happens.
Doomed one way or another. She gets a little bit of time as champion after Money in the Bank, but plans need to come back around to Flair. And it's interesting because if they do something with Jade at WrestleMania, there's a chance that we can get like a non-title match with her, where it's like Jade Cargill versus Charlotte Flair, and there's no championship. It's just to try to feature her, or Jade Cargill against Bianca Belair, and it's just, a featured match or whatever. But it's also a chance that they do Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair versus Charlotte Flair. People can't fully rule out triple threats to be like, well, that way we can have Jade win the title from Charlotte or something, where, like, I wouldn't shock me if they were to insert her into there and have that Flair Belair plan and just go, but if we could put Jade in there, or I mean, for that matter, they could end up having Jade Cargill on night 1 of WrestleMania against Natalya, just because they do that every once in a while or something. It wouldn't be what I would book, but stranger things have happened, so you can't rule that out either. But I know that some people are out there going, oh, the Io and Bayley thing's going to drag out to me. That's not going to be the main match, I don't think. I can't imagine that being another 6 months before we get Io versus Bayley. We could see Io versus Bayley versus Charlotte at Crown Jewel. Or we could get Io versus Bayley at Crown Jewel and then something else. I don't know, but it's not going to be Asuka winning this. It's either Io or Charlotte. I'm going to go Io, I think.
I think I'm going to go Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Io.
And then we've got those other 2 matches that we were kind of bouncing around which one's going to be the main event. So let's go with that tag match. It's John Cena and no partner who becomes LA Knight against Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa. And if you're wondering what's happening at Crown Jewel, well, you're like everybody else, because one place out there reports it's John Cena versus Roman Reigns. Another place reports it's LA Knight versus Roman Reigns. And then another one says it's neither of those, which would kind of mean maybe AJ Styles, because they didn't do anything with that.
Well, I'll say this, going back to that damn episode of NXT. They got Cena and Heyman on opposite sides of the ring. I don't see a reason why that wouldn't be leading to Cena doing more with the Bloodline.
And the biggest match, if you have Cena still around, is to have Cena wrestle.
But you know what? Honestly, it's a Saudi Arabian show. Drop the Hell in a Cell. Let them do the kendo stick chair shot Hell in a Cell match. You get to say you saw Roman and Cena in Hell in a Cell. That's what I would do. Just do that and keep it on Roman. Roman ain't losing it.
No, not a chance. He's not going to lose to AJ. He's not going to lose to LA Knight, and he's not going to lose to Cena. So, who does he beat at Crown Jewel? An event that we don't even know the venue for yet, by the way. They still haven't even officially announced
Jeddah
Crown Jewel.
or Riyadh. It's one of the two. It always is.
Yeah, but I don't think that they've ran the same arena more than once. if they did, they changed the name of it or something, because it's like it was like the King Joud something or other. Now last year it was, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but Mersul Park was Crown Jewel, and the year before that looks like it was Muhammad Abdu Arena, and before that it was something or other. I know it wasn't either of those, but we don't know what's happening with that because they still haven't bothered to announce this pay-per-view yet. Yeah, King Saud University Stadium in 2018. So it's probably going to be November 4th. It's most likely going to be in Riyadh. Obviously, Roman Reigns is going to be there because they always do that for those paid shows, and he's not going to lose belts. So the way that they book this match might be the indicator of that. If LA Knight gets the pin, and then it becomes, well, LA Knight's got a title shot, then that makes sense. If John Cena gets the pin, and that's how they lead into that. Or even if it's just LA Knight gets the pin because it's good for him, but John Cena gets the match because he's the bigger star and LA Knight's doing something else. I'm expecting John Cena and LA Knight to win this.
I'm more interested in tonight and tomorrow night and seeing how Jimmy and Jay interact with each other, because they're going to interact with each other. And Jimmy Uso is a fucking tool. This has jumped the shark completely. What are they doing with Jimmy Uso? Why is he just a complete whipping boy for the Bloodline when he didn't even want to be in the Bloodline 2 months ago? They did, honestly, I should blame you, Tony. They did exactly what you said for the most part, because you kept going, they'll probably just be in the Bloodline. And thank God they kept Jay out of it, but Jimmy did exactly what you thought. He'll just be in the Bloodline because. And that's what they're doing. And I hate it. I think it's a terrible idea. I think he's proven to be less of a threat than anybody. There was never a time ever where you would ever think Jay over Jimmy or Jimmy over Jay. This month and a half has put Jimmy on a completely different level that's way underneath where Jay is right now. Jimmy is the whipping boy, and Jay is en route to being a top star. It's crazy. I think the babyfaces win because they should. I do think LA Knight will get the pin. I don't think that means anything in regards to Roman stuff. But I think it'll be fun, and it's John Cena in a tag match. And if it's anything like the last tag match I saw him in, he won't do anything until he tags in to literally do the 5 moves. Maybe that lightning fist one, and call it a day.
Yeah, this match will be pretty straightforward in terms of just its structure. LA Knight will get beaten up for a while, Cena will make a hot tag, do the 5 moves, tag LA Knight in, and he'll get the pin. Almost certainly on a Jimmy Uso. Just based off of this, I think that the likely direction of Crown Jewel is going to be that John Cena is going to fight LA Knight, and Roman's going to face Jimmy Uso.
I love that.
Because from what my inclination is, the Bloodline, Jimmy's like trying to assert himself, the new kind of, when Roman's not around, I'm the leader of the Bloodline kind of angle, from the clips I've seen. And so he takes the loss here, like he embarrasses Solo and Paul Heyman as a result of it. Roman comes back and he's pissed off about the fact that he lost it. He beats the shit out of Jimmy, says, if you want to be, if you're back in the Bloodline, you're behind me, don't forget that. And then Jimmy decides to grow some semblance of a backbone and challenges him for Crown Jewel. And then you can just do whatever. It's a case of, you can put in a stipulation that if Jimmy loses, that he's just like, absolutely subservient again in the Bloodline, because obviously he will lose. But yeah, I think that seems to be the direction they're going in. Not that I really care one way or the other. Like, as Rob says, the Bloodline stuff is just a very weird spinning its wheels act I've got very little interest in anymore. The more interesting thing is having LA Knight get the victory, and then what it potentially leads down the road for him as a potential championship opportunity or challenger for either like a Survivor Series or Royal Rumble. I could see LA Knight being positioned at that point, because I think that it makes more sense. I think just from a character development and trying to establish him as a potential star moving forward, that it's more valuable for him to beat a guy like John Cena at Crown Jewel than to face Roman at Crown Jewel and lose.
And I mean, it is interesting that they started this whole thing off with the OC, because they promptly just said, all right, you're on the sidelines right now. This was like 3 weeks ago or so, when it was AJ Styles fighting with like Jimmy and Solo, and that, you know, the LA Knight and John Cena thing wasn't as much of a thing, but it almost seemed like it was going to be John Cena and AJ Styles against Jimmy and Solo. And then LA Knight just comes in there and whatever. And I know that maybe that's partially them just being like, well, it's strike while the iron's hot, but it's odd for them to go and we'll put him in that spot rather than give him something else, like, you know, some other prominent, you know, US title match or, you know, something along those lines, or make it, you know, triple threat or not triple threat, a 6-man tag, and throw somebody out there. I don't know who like Bloodline could recruit instead of Roman, but like, you know, Solo and Jimmy are backstage and there's that whole big issue and whatever. And there's Austin Theory or somebody that's like,
oh, please,
you know, started a feud with LA Knight, or, you know what I mean? Like something along those lines. Like, they did just sort of say to AJ Styles, yeah, go away for a little bit. So,
well, first of all, maybe he needed to. Like, there was the actual injury to Luke Gallows. Not that the OC was going to be any major threat.
Yeah.
The Bloodline, but there was that whole issue. And honestly, the more we're talking about it, the more I think it serves LA Knight better to be a guy who faces Roman at the Rumble, rather than be a guy who's in the Rumble and gets people's hopes up for no good reason. Like, I'd rather him get the match with Roman there, because, you know, he is a star. But I think if you put him in the Rumble, then you risk weird stuff with the crowd. And I just don't think... Like, I would rather see him face Roman at either Crown Jewel or Rumble or something. But the more I think about it with LA Knight, he's probably going to be a one and done against Roman. Again, as Tony says a lot in this podcast, I hope I'm wrong. But
is that actually one of my go-to things?
Yes, especially in recent weeks. I hope I'm wrong, but I think LA Knight's going to he'll get the big match, and then he'll quickly go on the cooling off back burner for the rest of forever.
Gonna have to add that down to the recurring things that everybody keeps saying list of just, I hope I'm wrong, circa whenever the hell Tony started saying that. Yeah. We're all going Knight and Cena, and then it's kind of a matter of where do they go from there? What are they booking for Crown Jewel? It's gonna
just real quick. If Callum's right, and I kind of hope he is, because it's funny to me about Jimmy Uso against Roman Reigns. I hope it's shorter than Kofi and Brock. Honestly, I hope Roman, ding ding ding, Roman just runs, spear, 1 2 3, because that would pop me. Because that's all Jimmy's proven at this point, and as weird as that is to say, like, that's all I see them doing with Jimmy.
I mean, I'd rather that than the typical 30-plus minute Roman match that we're getting these days. But yeah, like, for this match, just take it one step at a time. John Cena and LA Knight win, and Jimmy brings shame upon the Bloodline.
All right, that's been added to that recurring joke list for anybody that's wondering. I do update that when we think of some new things. And the other Fastlane match, again, remember everybody, we do have the hot tags to talk about after this too, so we're not just at the very end of this podcast today, is the last man standing match between Seth Rollins defending against Shinsuke Nakamura in one of those other, scenarios where a lot of times when somebody, wants to get another title match, it's the person that lost, and they're saying, I want another shot because you screwed me, and you only retain that title because of this or something. This was mostly Rollins being like, I want to fight you again. And Shinsuke Nakamura and Seth Rollins are really talented guys. There's a chance that they can pull this off, but there's also that fear with last man standing matches where this could be a lot of downtime. And we've seen good last man standing matches where people beat the living hell out of each other and they end up having a really fun, energetic brawl. Or we've seen those matches where people get like, he got Irish whipped into the corner. He's down for an 8.
Yep.
And with the story of Rollins having a back injury and all, that's something that they can play into with that. It could be like, yeah, he's really beaten down from the beginning of this or something. It's also something that's making me a little bit concerned about. This is a good, if we're blah, 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 words, I can talk. I speak English. If we were in a different environment, I would say, okay, so you've set up the back injury. This is a rematch. Rollins is going to retain, but he's going to be so beaten up that Damian Priest is going to cash in afterward. But I can't picture Damian Priest holding that belt right now. Whether they lose those tag titles or not, especially if they don't lose those tag titles. And if he does win it, I just imagine he's going to lose it right back to either Seth Rollins or to somebody else. And if it's somebody else, then I have no idea who. Because I'm looking at, I updated the WrestleMania predictions earlier today for anybody that wants to go back and check that out. It's been like a couple weeks since I updated that. And right now I'm like, oh, okay, so it's, in my mind, Rollins defending the title against either Gunther or CM Punk or, whatever. Talk about Punk a little bit later too. And I can't see any scenario of Damian Priest holding that belt going to Mania. Or even holding it, around Survivor Series.
I definitely see different people in the Mania story. But that doesn't stop Priest from cashing it in, having a short run and losing a la Big E. Because can't necessarily see him right now. If you ask me what I think is going to happen at Mania, I think it's Rollins Gunther. And I think Gunther probably beats Rollins. But I can't necessarily see Priest hanging around to cash in on Gunther. It's
weird because when I kept writing things out, I kept going, but then if this person, whatever, then I slot that one in there. Then, I wrote down like Gunther Rollins. So then I'm like, all right, what do we do for the Brock match? And I'm like, Brock Gunther makes sense. And if it's not Brock Gunther, then maybe Brock Logan Paul. And I'm like, but Logan Paul and Brock is, I don't know, whatever. And then I'm like, so that's if Gunther even loses that Intercontinental title, because I don't think that they're going to do IC title versus World Heavyweight title. And
no, I think Gunther will lose at some point to Gable. We'll see, because, they might be over Gable already. And they might just be moving on, and for all we know, Zion Quinn will beat Gunther.
He's free agent, right?
And not in the released kind of way.
No, he's in the free agent. We're going to draft him and then not do a single thing with him for months kind of way. I'm kind of assuming that this is just Rollins retains over Nakamura, and maybe there is an attempt at a cash-in, and maybe Damian Priest fails. But I don't even think that that's going to happen. I think that it's just going to end with Rollins retaining.
Alan, do you think there's a chance in hell that Nakamura wins here?
No, not particularly.
Okay, I just, wanted to throw that out there. Like, maybe. It's always an option, I guess.
I mean, I kind of like, I think that you're right that it's likely that Rollins, the guy that beats Rollins for the title, is Gunther. I don't know if I can really wait until WrestleMania at this point, because this is I mean, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, or maybe I'm just overstating it, but I think Rollins has been dreadful as world champion so far. I think it's been, I would say dreadful, and it's not entirely his fault. I think the booking's been bad for him. He's been fighting the same guys. He fought Finn Balor 3 times in a row, and now he's facing Nakamura for the second time. It's really, really underwhelming. But I think that he's underperforming. I think that the swagger that he had prior to winning the world title was pretty much disappeared, and that he's reverted back to just being, plain babyface rather than, they still sing his song, but they're into the song, they're not into him, it feels like now. And yeah, I think that the time is right for him to lose the title, but I don't want him losing to a Nakamura that for the last few years has been going at half speed. So this is the wrong guy to beat him for the title. But it's the right time for him to lose it. I mean, I'd argue that it was the right time for him to lose it against Balor at SummerSlam all those a couple of months ago, but we're still clinging on for the time being. So, I mean, I'm not too enthusiastic about this. wasn't too enamored with their match at the previous pay-per-view. So I'm not going to... And last man standing matches, as we've discussed, are very, very hit and miss matches, and they can either elevate it if you're allowed to go with the right level of violence and intensity into it. Otherwise, it's like, a guy hitting a back suplex and then starting a 10 count. And I think we're just based on what we saw in the previous match and what I think the current enthusiasm of these two guys are for the product, I think that we're likely to see the more underwhelming version of it. So, yeah, I'm not particularly looking forward to this match.
It's a shame, right? Because it's like, in a different time frame, would be like, wow, if these two are fighting for the world championship, this could be great.
It's the kind of match that we would fantasy book, but with all the caveats and, asterisks of, well, in the fantasy booking, we have kept Nakamura strong, and in the fantasy booking, Rollins is a good champion. And I do want to touch on that a little bit, because there are some people who are just like, this has been the worst thing ever. And I think part of that is the preconceived notion that the title he's holding is absolutely just this weird, C prize belt because Roman's not around. I don't think that's helped him, because I think for what it's been fine. I'm not going to say it's been a great run. It's been a fine run. But with the preconceived notion of this title is being created to have something to fight over, I just don't think people have been feeling it. That being said, I also agree with Callum. He should have lost it to Balor. He should have finished that story where, okay, Balor finally get the win back, and Judgment Day has the titles, and
Damian Priest maybe cashes in on Balor, and
you could have maybe even done that, or had Priest cash in when it was more part of that story. They feel too removed from that story now, to where it's like, I don't even know if I want to see that happen here. I do have it as an opportunity because, hey, if he wins here and loses by crown jewel, Priest was champion. We did the thing. Get over it, But right now, I'm going to say Rollins wins and nothing happens.
And there is a chance that somebody like a Drew McIntyre, he's on its way towards a heel turn. Maybe that's the next feud for Seth Rollins. Maybe it's Rollins McIntyre around Survivor Series time. There is the Jey Uso
of it all too. Like, Rollins ain't happy that Jey Uso's there. Jey Uso winning a world title equivalent could be a way for him to have a nice little stare down with Roman. If you are going to do Raw and SmackDown at Survivor Series instead of War Games, because again, we don't know, that's a fun way to get a Jey Roman match out of it. Then you can just play around completely with Roman being like, yeah, what you're holding on your shoulder is a seat that, there's people can beat Rollins. I just don't think it's Nakamura on October 7th.
And Survivor Series right now on the website is still just listed as Survivor Series. It's not Survivor Series War Games. They don't have any graphics that say War Games. The poster is just Survivor Series logo and all that. But yeah,
right now the tickets aren't set up for like a double ring kind of situation.
It's not even like that either.
No.
So that might be an indicator that maybe it isn't War Games. And I mean, maybe this is something to think about, but maybe War Games happens at Crown Jewel. That would, that could give them they like to have those, the biggest battle royal and the.
They do. As I said before, I questioned putting a match called War Games on in Saudi Arabia, but other than that, I think that'd be a cool way to get it done.
Because then you could just have, Roman doesn't even need to defend the title. It's just Roman's in the War Games match with whoever, or you might even have two. Probably not. It might be, Roman and Jimmy and what was it? Is it 4 or is it 5? 4.
4 last year.
Yeah. So that could be. I don't think they're going to put Paul Heyman in there, but
it was 5 because it was all the Bloodline and then Sammy.
That's true. The Usos, Solo, Roman, and Sammy. Yeah, but they've done 4, I think, before with the Undisputed Era, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't add anybody else to it. It's just Undisputed Era. So I mean, they could do 4 on 4, and they would need a 4th one for the Judgment Day or for Bloodline if they do that kind of thing. But I don't know. Stranger things have happened again, to repeat that phrase. But it is interesting that maybe they do that for Crown Jewel, and maybe they don't. I don't fucking know. But I'm gonna go. Rollins retains, no successful cash in.
I second that.
Yep, Rollins wins. No follow up.
No, even an attempt at a cash in.
Yeah, I'd say that he just have the tag title win, and they don't proceed from there.
What do you think that they'll eventually do with that Money in the Bank briefcase?
I have no idea, because I don't see personally, just don't see Priest as a world champion. So I think that my personal opinion, or what I would do, I'd find some way to have someone beat him for it.
Anybody stand out in your mind?
Gunther.
Just like
Just let Gunther win everything. Just like, I've just decided you don't have that briefcase. I want that briefcase.
Have Gunther come out with a particular outfit on, and he'll be like, that briefcase matches. I want it for my outfit.
I mean, I think I could see it happening in just a random episode of Raw, and then Rollins wins it back at the next pay-per-view. Or he wins it on a random November or December episode of Raw, and then Rollins beats him at the Royal Rumble for it, and then carries it into WrestleMania.
Yeah. They have definitely shown that in the past.
Yeah, I think it'll be a short-term elevation of Priest. Him losing it will further his split with the Judgment Day, and then he. But yeah, I don't imagine that he's going to win it and then go on a 6-month run.
And that could even be the story that they want to tell: is Priest wins the belt. They do some quick feud with Rollins or somebody else potentially, but I think that it's mostly Rollins. And then pretty soon afterward, he loses it because of something with Balor. And then it's you cost me the championship, and now we're feuding at Mania or something. In any case, that's Fastlane, but we do have some more hot tags to talk about. So we mentioned this before, and we'll get into some of the repeat stuff, but we'll also get into some other different things too. The NXT side of things going on at the moment. Dominik Mysterio lost that North American Championship at No Mercy. And if you go back, check out the No Mercy Pay-Per-Viewpoint post show, you'll get my thoughts on that. Trick Williams already lost it back, though. Dominik Mysterio beat him on this past episode of NXT. Some interference, of course, from the Judgment Day. Some, continued tension between Trick and Carmelo Hayes, where Trick Williams was saying that he didn't want Carmelo Hayes out there in support of him. And obviously, if he would have had him out there, probably would have helped. But it doesn't seem like this was at all their plan of what to do with that North American Championship, because if you believe all the reports, and you got to take it with a grain of salt, but it does kind of seem to make a little bit of sense here. supposedly their plan was Mustafa Ali was going to interfere in that Dragon Lee match on Raw. And that would have set up a triple threat. Mustafa Ali would have won and then would have held the North American Championship up until Mania season. Whether or not that is true is still kind of perplexing because they were setting up this Mustafa Ali thing and then they perpetually kept avoiding it. Because this was not a Dominik Mysterio, Dragon Lee, Mustafa Ali feud. This was a Wesley, Tyler Bate, Mustafa Ali feud. And then suddenly Dominik Mysterio comes in and he wins that belt. So something changed along the way. And then Mustafa Ali also got released along the way. And the trick thing, I am assuming at this point, is they thought, hey, well, why don't we do it to get people talking, to give a big pop on the No Mercy show, to further that feud with Trick and Mello. But our plans are not for Trick to have that belt. So let's just switch it right back, go back to Dom, and then we'll figure it out. And right now, I don't know who I would have as the next champion after Dom, especially if Dragon Lee ends up being moved up to the main roster. Because there's not a single person that's in the NXT landscape right now that immediately goes and screams out to me like, clearly it's going to be Brian Pillman Jr. or clearly it's going to be Axiom or Wesley returning. I mean, Wesley seemed like he was leaning more towards bumping up to that main event level. And yeah, maybe the game plan is for him to be the guy that beats Ilya Dragunov or something. But Dom winning that belt back is pretty interesting to me. How do you guys feel about it?
I thought it was great. I'm all for a little bit of hot potato with these belts because I'm burned out with this Roman Reigns shit of, yeah, they're holding on to it for thousands of days. Like, why? So I'm all right with Trick Williams, who's not ready at all, getting it for a moment and then losing it right away. I still think Dragon Lee should beat Dominik Mysterio at Halloween Havoc in a mask versus title match. You always talk about Eddie and Ray, just run it back. You get not many chances to do something like this where it makes sense. And I think this is the perfect time to do it. Just do mask versus title.
I mean, I can't say that because I'm not regularly watching NXT that it really affects me one way or the other, but I feel a little bit sorry for Trick because the argument say, yeah, he's certainly not ready for a to be like the focal point of a championship. But I'd argue that from an in-ring perspective, Dominic's not ready either. Like, he's definitely better than Trick, but like, are they really the two guys that you want to build your mid-card title around, even on your developmental show? I mean, I thought the long-term... Well, what I was seeing off the back of No Mercy was, like, Carmelo doesn't have a title anymore, and Trick does. And I thought, okay, Trick's going to hold it for a little while. Carmelo's going to get super jealous, beat the shit out of him, and take his title back. Because he was the North American champion for the longest period of time. And I thought that, that it made more sense that Carmelo would be the one to turn on Trick rather than Trick turning on Carmelo, because everything seems to point towards the idea of it being the other way around, but Carmelo's a better heel and Trick's a better babyface. So that would have been the direction I took. So just to see it go straight back onto Mysterio feels a little bit, underwhelming, because we've seen really no progression of Trick Williams as a result of it. Like, he's just held a title for a couple of days and has immediately lost it. Like, how has that changed him? How has that title win progressed his character or anything of that? Anything on that respect is just, something that happened that didn't need to happen. Like, it's one of those title changes they did because they had to change their plans at the last minute because of the whole Mustafa Ali situation. And so they decided, okay, we're going to take advantage of the opportunity to give Trick Williams a fluke surprise win and then have him immediately drop it afterwards because we had no intention of Dominik losing it at that point anyway. So yeah, and I can't say that I'm a big fan of the direction it's taken. But yeah, if their aim is to keep the title on Dominik for a while, and they'll plan for someone else to win it, but I have no idea who that would potentially be. Because that's unless you do revert to Carmelo taking it back as an act of revenge, like, and keeping them as a unit, and Carmelo goes back after the title. I think Dragon Lee's ready to move up to the main roster, so he doesn't need to be North American champion anymore. Like, otherwise you're looking at someone like from the whoever was involved in that Heritage Cup tournament. One of them is probably the most likely fit for winning it, but they need to build that person up, whoever that individual is, whether it's Nathan Fraser or Axiom or Tyler Bate or Pete Dunne or whoever. They need to we need to give them on a run of wins and then have them like build up, because at the moment they're all just taking wins off each other or from people at a similar level, and they need one of them to stand out and say, hey, we're going to put you on a run of wins and have you beat Dominik. So, but yeah, that's just the general vibe that I'm getting, that it making that title change and doing this quick thing has achieved nothing for either guy.
It's hard to trust that there is a plan, at least right now, because it doesn't seem like they're really following any kind of a path. But at least their game plan when it comes to, say, Ilya Dragunov seems to be that they're going to do some kind of a Baron Corbin match, since he's looking at that belt and kind of, already having some crosswords with him. And even more so, their plan, doesn't seem like they're looking so far ahead at Halloween Havoc, which it's going to be 2 nights. That's it's a decision to have it be the 24th and the 31st instead of just the 31st. But this is also they did the 2-night Gold Rush thing, so maybe that's the strategy going forward, is to have like a double week special thing to see if maybe that just bumps up the card or something, or the ratings or whatever. But I would expect Ilya Dragunov versus Baron Corbin on one of those nights. And I think that in the meantime that they're mostly just sort of focused on what do they do next week to get people to not tune into AEW Title Tuesday, which they've announced a few things that we mentioned already. Braun Breaker is going to have Paul Heyman in his corner against Carmelo Hayes, who's going to have John Cena in his corner. So clearly that's basically, let's do a little bit of bloodline stuff, but include 2 guys that we're going to be moving up to the main roster in, the next year. And Asuka is going to go up against Roxanne Perez because Kiana James made a phone call.
Okay, so I can explain that a bit more detail than I did through Messenger.
I watched the thing. She's like, hey, if Roxanne wants to, be like the hot shot around here, she's gonna go up against Asuka, which was just like, what? Okay, what?
Well, Kiana has money. I mean, we don't know what she does with Kiana James Industries or whatever it's called. That she almost bought a bar. She almost bought a bar. She didn't call it puzzles, but she almost bought a bar. And I guess she can just call people and be like, hey, give me Asuka. And they say, okay. I'm like, I don't know how that works. Good for Roxy, though. I mean, like, she'll be in the ring with another former champion. She needs to go. I don't know if this was kind of the thing, like with the Breaker stuff, where there was plants in the crowd or whatever. But like,
the booze, yeah.
So random, just like, fucking get out of here. When he's like, boo. For what? Why are you booing Roxanne? What'd she do to you?
Yeah, she got a really bad reaction from that crowd. And
it's one of those things with NXT, the fact that because they've got a home base, essentially every single show is formed in the same place and is pretty much formed against a lot of the same audience over and over again. They've won a few of them started to get a negative impression of it. It just spreads throughout the entire crowd, because it's not like it's not like they're touring and you're just going from one place to another. So if the same crowd gets sick of seeing you, or for some reason finds you boring, or you're not, or anything of that ilk, if one of them turns, then they gradually infect everyone else. So yeah, she's suffering in the same way that pretty much every person they've pushed as a quite generic babyface ends up suffering.
He has anxiety, though.
Does that mean that she's ready for Asuka, or is she just gonna have an anxiety attack?
I mean, last time she was in the ring with the Joshi legend, she didn't come out of it so hot. So let's see.
The Cody Rhodes thing we already talked about, and I mean, NXT might have the Undertaker on it, and if you are kind of going based off of Boozer on Twitter, kind of seems like maybe they wanted to do something with Joe Gacy and Undertaker, which seems a little odd to me outside of the fact that like Joe Gacy is sort of, Bray Wyatt-esque or something, but I don't like that idea.
You wouldn't do something with anybody. Do something with Corbin. He fucking rode out on a motorcycle. Taker's not going to put on the black hat. He's going to do the badass thing, so do that. I mean,
great if it's like, yeah, we got a plan for Undertaker on NXT. We're going to put him with Enofe and Blade. We're like, he's going to have a big segment with Eddie Thorpe.
Hijack's a big guy.
Got to make sure you get that Luca Crucifino and Undertaker segment in there.
I could see Dijak for real. Like I could see like a Dijak segment or quite frankly a Breaker segment. That'd be pretty good. He's the badass Braun Breaker, right? You could play some puns of American Badass. There's a few people you can play with, even Trick. I can see Mark Calloway in the form that he presents himself now saying, "Whoop that Trick." I wouldn't like it. I can.
Yeah,
see
please don't.
I can see it happening now.
There are, I don't know, 30-something people on this roster, and about 26 or so people that I'm like, please don't put Undertaker with Gallus or with Metaphor or I don't know, maybe I wouldn't really want to see Undertaker have a segment with Javier Bernal or Hank and Tank, like
Javier Bernal can eat a chokeslam.
Yeah. Undertaker part, I don't really know. That's an oddball thing. Is there anything else that they had advertised ahead of time for that NXT thing that I'm forgetting about? I mean, the Undertaker one's not technically advertised, I guess, but
yeah, it's not advertised. I mean, we touched on the Cody thing. Obviously, that should be the Destro Tag Team Classic. They could always add to it. They could always put Rey Mysterio on it. You know what I mean? Like, nothing's really stopping them from doing anything. Most of these people live in Florida as it is. Ridge Holland was there. Maybe they do Brawling Brutes against Gallows. That's another main roster thing. There's a lot of things you could do. I mean, I never want to hear anybody say NXT's not competition. I mean, AEW's not competition, though. Because you don't put John Cena on NXT for no reason.
Well, at least when it comes to AEW, that's going to be Title Tuesday. Dynamite's going to be airing on Tuesday night instead of Wednesday, so they're, giving it that little extra bump by calling it Title Tuesday. And as such, there are some title matches, and there's some other non-title matches that are, have some potential to them and are pretty important to big stars involved and all. We're going to get Robin Callum's thoughts a little bit about Adam Copeland in this mix here to go back from Wrestle Dream, since they didn't get a chance to talk about that and stuff. But first things first, we're going to get Saraya against Hikaru Shida for the Women's World Championship. I'm not anticipating a title change.
No, I think Saraya will retain.
Show me the money. That's basically
money.
Yeah, really. Show me. At this point, she's got to be coming in. If it's not here to build to full gear, it's full gear. But I think we're just a matter of weeks away from Mercedes.
You think the big thing for her there is just going to be Saraya retains and then Mercedes pops out?
Yeah.
Gives her one of those stare downs. And
to be fair, like, I don't love the idea of jumping straight to those two, since, it was a fucking accident.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure they really are eager to work with each other properly. So just do it. Otherwise, put the title on Cheetah.
There's a non-title but number one contenders match for the TNT Championship. Swerve Strickland against Bryan Danielson.
That's gonna fucking rule, man. That's gonna be so good. I don't even care who wins. I mean, I think it will be Bryan, but Swerve could do whatever. Like, that's awesome. That's how you book a TV show.
It makes way more sense if it's Bryan Danielson versus Christian Cage.
Yeah, we're talking. Go ahead. Go.
I say absolutely. Like, it should be Danielson. Like, I enjoy the match. The fact the match is going to take place because it should be really, really good. I'm not. I say I don't want to be like one of those people that says like it's absolutely like why is Strickland going to take a loss immediately after getting that big win over Hangman? But I think if it's against Danielson, it's not like just some random mid card guy's beating him. It's a guy that also won a Wrestle Dream and had a big match. So I think that you can get away with it, especially if there's some kind of involvement with Hangman if you want to continue that feud moving forward.
Especially because Jay White's going to go up against Hangman Adam Page. And Jay White is on a quest to face MJF for the World Championship at Full Gear. So Jay White shouldn't be losing. And you can have Swerve screw over Hangman earlier in the night, and then Hangman screws over Swerve. And then there you go. The feud continues. They both take a loss, but they lose to people that aren't, enhancement talent by any means. And
use some kind of Texas Death gimmick at the pay-per-view. I mean, I'm just looking forward to seeing Bryan and Swerve kill it. I'm looking forward to seeing Bryan work with Christian. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that's ever happened. I can't recall them wrestling each other on WWE TV.
Christian, I'm pretty sure was... No,
I think maybe they were both in that ladder match we watched, the Money in the Bank one that Randy won, but like as far as like a one-on-one, nah.
I'm gonna browse a cage match and see if maybe that pops up, but yeah, I don't think that they've had any matches together.
I'm looking forward to that. I mean, unfortunately, Bryan Danielson does have a father that has passed away. We know that's just like crack for Christian.
Didn't even think about that.
That is crack for Christian Cage. Christian's now mentoring a Pacific Northwest boy and Nick Wayne. Bryan Danielson can get involved with Nick Wayne.
Just done a quick search. So they have one singles match in their career. It was 23rd of August 2011, Christian versus Daniel Bryan in a singles match.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's nobody's thinking about that.
No, I see a different one. I see one 2014, February 17th on Monday Night Raw. Is their most recent one.
They've had a couple.
I mean, that was I'm seeing an Elimination Chamber match in 2014.
Yeah, I see they were both in the same Royal Rumble in 2021. And then 2014, before that, the Elimination Chamber, the February 2014 Raw episode. There's a Friday Night SmackDown episode of in 2013. They had fought each other for 9 minutes. And a 2011 match. So it's like, I mean, it really doesn't count for the most part. It's not like a...
But quite funny was to see in this as well that they had a tag team match in 2006 in Ring of Honor.
Nice.
Yeah. Bryan Danielson and Christopher Daniels against Christian Cage and Colt Cabana.
That's a match.
They could do it.
All guys that are all working for AEW, so they could do this match in AEW now if they wanted to. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm all for like having some good matches on TV. So they sound like some good reasons to tune in on Tuesday night. Go see Phoenix and Moxley.
Yeah, Phoenix is going to defend the International Championship against Jon Moxley, which I would assume is going to, I mean, he wasn't supposed to win it to begin with, so.
And he is, by all accounts, very badly banged up. So, I think
Phoenix?
Yeah.
It has been great.
To be honest, the match he had with Nick Jackson was really, really good. But then when I was like looking back at it and like hearing some of the reviews for it, Phoenix takes one bump, or at least one back bump in that entire match. And I think it was when he did the arm drag to the outside, and that was the only time his back hit the mat in terms of an actual serious bump. So yeah, they're playing it very, very safe for him. I mean, that's why he was taken out of the match so early at the Wrestle Dream show. So yeah, I think it's a safe bet to say that Moxley's going to win the title back from him.
Yeah, and I'm all for that. You know?
And then what else was on the show?
Powerhouse Hobbs against Chris Jericho is scheduled for this.
Yeah.
Hobbs, of course, just recently joined the Don Callis family. So
I'd say Hobbs should win that. I think that's fine in the sense that we know that Jericho is likely going to face Sammy Guevara at Full Gear.
If he's healthy.
So, especially as long as he's healthy. So I don't think it really affects Jericho to take a loss here to Hobbs, and this would help establish Hobbs as, the new member of this collective.
Don Callis really bringing back the hodgepodge stable.
It's the Heenan family.
Yeah, I think it's good though. It's like there's definitely some room for the Callis family to take over it going into 2024. Like you have like Ospreay going off the maybe World Championship. You have, I'd say, Guevara as TNT champion, Takeshita as international champion. You pair up Hobbs with, I would argue, you'd pair Hobbs up with Wardlow, make them the tag champions, because Wardlow needs some direction.
What do you mean? He
came back and did the same stuff that he's been doing for the last 2 years, and then walked away.
But he had a direction. He knew where he was going. He walked right out. I saw him. He can follow directions. No, but Wardlow to me is the biggest miss in AEW history. Like as far as homegrown, it's the biggest miss. Like I don't feel excited when I see him. I'm just like, okay, they're gonna try with him again. He's kind of fallen into that Kane Big Show pattern, right? Where it's like he's big, but they never have anything consistent for him.
Yeah, who else is big? Just had them.
Tunde?
Yeah. And nobody has anything for him right now. Yeah. The other match is Luchasaurus against the Rated R Superstar. They can't call him Edge, but they can call him that. Adam Copeland. And now I kind of pass it off to you guys to tell us what you think about the whole Adam Copeland thing from Wrestle Dream.
I thought, for as lackluster as the WWE run was, I think it was very special. I think it was a really cool moment. I think they basically plucked Edge as he was in WWE and plopped him right into AEW. They called him the Rated R Superstar. They've got the Rated R. They've got the song. They don't have the You Think You Know Me. It's You Think You Know Him, but it's Beth Phoenix doing it, which is super cool.
It's a nice little touch.
I think that this is a pretty solid win given the circumstances, just talking about him actually being there without thinking about anything that he said in interviews afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a bit skeptical about this. I thought the debut was excellent in terms of its execution. Thought the little video package that he did prior to it, which he said he got a lot of help from Darby Allin with, was a great way of introducing him, coming into the company, like spearing Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus after Nick Wayne had turned on Darby Allin earlier in the match, which was a crazy match, irrespective of the debut anyway. But yeah, it was a really nice moment. The crowd really received Copeland well. And then he comes out on the following episode of Dynamite and he says that the reason why he was here is because he wants to spend time with Uncle Jay. Brings out Christian Cage and says that he wants, even though he has a lot of people that he wants to fight one-on-one in AEW, he also wants to show the world why they were once the greatest tag team of all time, like in the world at one point. And so they go on one final run and take on the FTR and the Young Bucks, and he hugs Christian, and then Christian just shouts to the mic, "Go fuck yourself."
Go fuck you. That's amazing. That's one of those things where, are you using vulgarity for the sake of it? Absolutely. Did it work? Absolutely. That was so good.
Swearing is such a great tool when you use it sparingly. Like, it needs to be at that exact right moment, and that was just a word. Like, the way he's saying it and the manner he said it was just the perfect impact. Like, you shouldn't use it often. When you do, it makes a mark like that. That was great. And Christian's doing I think many people were saying it, and I would definitely agree. This is the best work of his career. He feels like a main event guy now, which I don't think he felt like for a little while in TNA, but I don't think it's been as sustained or as prevalent as he is right now. And yeah, but we'll almost certainly inevitably get that Copeland versus Christian Cage match. I think how I would play it going forward is that I would try and get Cage to try and corrupt Edge or Copeland. I'm going to keep saying Edge, but it's going to be Copeland.
Yeah, he's Edge.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he should try and corrupt him and basically say what happened to you, like play off the lackluster final couple of years in WWE and say what happened to you. You used to be a manipulator, like cruel and vindictive and take whatever you wanted, and then you just turn into I'm a Mr. Happy to be here guy. Like, that's not the guy that I teamed up with for all those years. I teamed up with a killer. And, like, you build that side of things. So you can build up the feud. Because I think the real money in Copeland is as a heel.
Yeah.
I think that like you can have him be like for the first couple of months ride the wave of, oh my god, this guy's in AEW, that's great. But then like, if you actually want to take him seriously and do that, if they're going to be a tag team, it needs to be as a heel. I don't want to see smiley, happy-go-lucky 5-second pose Edge and Christian. I want to see like gnarled veterans, because I don't want Christian turning babyface after this. He's the biggest heel in wrestling right now. Like, I don't think he needs to turn babyface at any point. So if they are going to ever team up again, Copeland needs to be the one that turns.
I mean, I think that they will, absolutely. I really enjoyed the subtle mention of Judgment Day, of him bringing up, like, these two are going to turn on you once they're done sucking your brain dry.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there. Like, because, yeah, that was, like, the last thing he did, and it took forever to get through that. And, again, everything that Adam does, like, you care. You can tell that there's... Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it's too long-winded. Like, he had the Mountain of Omnipotence stuff. But with this, it was like, you can tell he's serious about, hey, there's a whole locker room of fresh matches. And, like, I could have easily retired. That was on the table. But my family said, go have fun. And I just want to have fun. And one thing we haven't talked about, at least Callum and I haven't, he's full-time, and I think that that's fucking awesome. Him being there every week, I think, is great. And it's kind of proof that, yeah, sometimes these part-time schedules are shitty for the talent as well. For a guy like Edge isn't like Brock Lesnar. See, that shit works for Lesnar and Rock because they're better off that way. But a guy like Edge is better when he's constantly creating. He's not a come play the hits guy. He's all right, I did this, now I want to change it up and do this. And I think he's going to get the chance to do that in AEW.
Yeah. I will add to the other side of the equation, though, which was my initial concern about Copeland, and based on the first episode of Dynamite following it, I'm worried that my suspicions or my fears are being confirmed. Dynamite pulled its second lowest number of the year on this week's show. And I know there's a lot of factors involved in it, but like you're the thing that you're pushing most for this show is Copeland speaks, and it's like his actual first appearance on Dynamite, and you pull your second lowest number of the year. I think that I will wait to be proven wrong, that I think that he will prove not to be worth the money that they're properly invested in him. I just don't think that by any reasonable metric, Copeland has ever throughout his career proven to be a draw. And the at least the initial impressions aren't driving me in another direction. So
I want to say everything that you said is so true. I'm going to counter that by saying I think I'm at a point where I just don't give a fuck
what
the ratings say.
at the end of the day, like if you're a fan of him or you just want to watch the product and not really think about that, it's like at the end of the day, we shouldn't care about what the business metrics of the ratings say. If we're enjoying the stuff, then we're enjoying the stuff. That's completely down to you, and that's completely down to whoever as an individual. I'm just saying that.
If you were in that business position,
just looking at the other side of it, like that was my hesitation with bringing him in the first place, like bringing a near 50-year-old guy who isn't a proven needle mover into the company when you should be trying to make new stars rather than bringing in. And I know Meltzer mentioned in like the newsletter saying that there's now a bit of an optics issue with AEW, that there is a quite considerable proportion of older guys in the company, but yeah, I think that is slightly overblown, because like none of those guys are fighting for the world title every week or in the main event picture all the time. But I think that there is something to be said that we hopefully, well, if the aim is to try and beat, I'm going to say, like, I don't really want to say that it's NXT versus AEW next week, because realistically it's WWE versus AEW next week, because the majority of the people that they've booked for NXT are main roster people. So I think that it's more WWE versus AEW next week. I'm fully convinced that WWE is going to absolutely wipe the floor with them ratings wise. Primarily because they put John Cena and Cody Rhodes on the show, and they're just huge needle movers by any stretch, but also the fact that Tuesday is the regular night for NXT, whereas AEW is moving nights, and whenever you move the show, you are going to lose a proportion of people who would usually watch on Wednesday night, but maybe they have other commitments on Tuesday night, or they, despite how many times they say it's Total Tuesday, everyone says, "Oh, well, I was going to watch Dynamite, but it's on it was Wednesday. Where's Dynamite?" It's just like some people just don't listen to that stuff.
Oh, that Title Tuesday coming up on Wednesday.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that, and the discourse after that will just be terrible. So you might just want to mute your Twitter or your Facebooks or anything like that for a couple of days afterwards. And all of those black and gold supporters are just going to be like going crazy about how AEW is dying and all that other stuff. But yeah. We'll wait and see. Hopefully, he has a good match with Luchasaurus. It'd be good to see how he does. I also saw, like, just from the other side of the equation as well, how stupid some of the AEW marks were on Twitter when they showed Edge spearing Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus at the end of Dynamite and said, "Wow, he's finally hitting the spear with some conviction." And then everyone replied with videos of him hitting the spear in the last 2 years, and they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is I think it was one of the coolest spears I've seen, because Luchasaurus landed so perfectly on the chair. I was like, oh, that's really fun. That, like, he hit the mark exactly. That's got very little to do with Edge, I'm sure, though.
In terms of just other stuff from Wrestle Dream, again, not going to go like blow for blow or anything, but Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. is really high up there for me for match of the year candidate.
I added it to my list, yeah.
Yeah, that was surreal watching that match, because it was just so different from, like, I've seen very technical wrestling matches. I mean, as a huge Kurt Angle fan, like, I've seen lots of matches that have that kind of style to it, but God, those two took it to another level. And my favorite part of that entire match was the part where Danielson's hitting Zack Sabre Jr. with a lot of left-handed uppercuts, and Zack Sabre Jr. baits him in saying, "Why don't you hit me with your right? Hit me with your right." And then he starts doing it, and then Sabre uses that to just immediately start targeting the broken arm. So yeah, I just have so much. I'm gonna have to rewatch that before deciding, because there are about like 5 or 6 matches that I'm debating in my head about who's match of the year, but that one's definitely high up there. And the trios tag match that followed it between the Callis family and Jericho and the Golden Elite was a ton of fun as well. And Strickland vs. Page was great. I thought it was a great show, and most matches delivered. There was only one match that I really did not like on the whole show.
Which was?
MJF versus The Righteous.
Because that story has also jumped the shark.
I was so pissed off with the segment on this episode of Dynamite. Like, they adamant. I like the Roddy stuff. I like the character work that he's doing, but it's gone way. Well, first of all, the fucking technical issues with the sound, which meant that they had to play the whole segment twice, on the show, which was just like that was shitty. And then it went way too far with all the shouting and the slow motion stuff of like Adam Cole riding across like the living room on one of those scooters where like you propped one of your injured legs up. Yeah, I just think it's I think it's now getting to the point where it's way too goofy for a world title storyline or like your main event storyline. If this was like burying the mid card, that's another story completely. But if this is supposedly one of your main storylines, then it's getting a bit too dumb for me.
Yeah, I have to agree. Because I like MJF and I like the way he wrestles. And I think it's cool that he gets people to pop for body slams, but I also think it's annoying in the sense that that's just the crowd playing along. You know what I mean? They just want to be like, wow, we're going to pop for a body slam because it's funny because no one does that anymore. And it's like, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's also a little telling that, there's this big, we're obviously going to have this big WWE and AEW battling on the same night, and both sides seem very eager to try and get the quote unquote victory, if nothing more than to stroke their own egos. Yeah, MJF is nowhere to be seen on this AEW show.
Yeah, they haven't booked him yet. That is true. They still got time, and they still might. But you're right.
Yeah, but surely your biggest star or your world champion, like if you are really desperate to get the ratings win over WWE, surely he should be front and center of this show. Not necessarily having a match, but have a big segment planned at the very least. And
they might announce that like on Rampage tonight. Yeah, it might be something where they go. And by the way, MJF is going to have some, I don't know, he's going to defend the ROH tag titles against, I don't even know who those teams would be.
I mean, they've already booked 6 matches for the show. They usually don't go any more than that for an episode of Dynamite. I think it's one of the things. For me, it's either Khan kind of like strategically throwing in the towel, saying that NXT is probably going to win, but we didn't book MJF in a match, which you can use as some kind of damage control, or it's some kind of veiled admission that maybe his matches or aren't the big ratings mover that MJF is saying they are. Who knows? It's one way. Either way, you can speculate what way you look at it. I'm personally starting to fall out of that story, but I am at least happy that it is being at least temporarily replaced with MJF versus Jay White feud, which I am very excited about.
And obviously, we'll talk Jay White and MJF potential title situation when we get closer to Full Gear. But I got 2 more hot tags on this list. One of them revolving around CM Punk, one of them revolving around Matt Riddle. So people that are, recently fired from their companies. I think probably the easiest one for us to do is the Matt Riddle one, supposedly. Take it with a grain of salt, rumors, blah, blah, blah. Matt Riddle might be fighting Jake Paul soon. That may be in negotiations right now. And, that would make sense if they can capitalize off of that. And, Matt Riddle doesn't have some kind of a deal necessarily lined up with another wrestling company or something. He might want to go back into doing, a fight like that. And if you want to put somebody up against him, there's not many people that are mainstream right now, more so than somebody like a Jake Paul. If I know who he is and I don't follow any of that kind of stuff, you better be damn sure that people that actually care about this would be interested.
Nope, the people that actually care about the sport, don't they usually hate the Paul stuff? Because they feel like it's a bit of a mockery. I don't know if you would know more, Callum, but I barely know much about that. But I know that they feel like, hey, this is taking away from the actual athletes.
I think that, this whole celebrity boxing, or if you even call it celebrity, it's more like, streamer boxing is exploded. It's so huge right now, and it's been huge for a number of years, ever since the whole like KSI and Logan Paul fights from a few years back. So it would not surprise me at all that if we'd see like Riddle as a very prominent ex-WWE guy coming in and having that match against a guy like Jake Paul. I think that could easily draw pretty quickly. I mean, we've seen Johnny TV or John Hennigan or Johnny Nitro, however you want to, or John Morrison, however you want to refer to him.
Johnny Mundo.
Like he's been on, he's been on some of those shows as well, doing like those boxing matches against streamers. So yeah, it's definitely not out of the question for that to happen. And to be honest, I see that as probably the most likely route of Riddle getting some work anytime soon. I would say so. I'm desperately hoping that Tony Khan does not sign him for AEW. Like, hopefully he can read the room and see that it's not worth it, especially after you've put however much you have into Copeland and are hopefully going to be putting into getting Mercedes Moné into the company as well. Like, don't try and flush any more of that into a guy who's just going to cause you like a lot of PR nightmares for, despite how good he is in the ring and how entertaining he can be, it's not worth the headache. But, for some one-off like boxing or MMA matches with a bit of a freak show value to them, yeah, Riddle could definitely fill that void.
John Hennigan was Johnny Hardy at one point.
For one show in Mexico. Because Jeff Hardy couldn't work, so they made him Johnny Hardy.
I don't even know some of the Johnny Spade, Johnny Onyx.
I think for a while he was just taking the big name of whatever indie promotion he was working on at that night, and like, oh, you're wrestling for Blackcraft Wrestling, you're gonna be Johnny Blackcraft.
Johnny Down Under is apparently one of them.
That's good.
Johnny Foxwoods, Johnny Game Changer, Johnny Progress. So
he's just taking the names. I love that. I think that's one of the funniest things. I don't want them to sign Riddle. I'm good on Riddle. By the way, yes, they were called McRiddle. Like, that was a thing that they were actively doing on television. And the amount of accounts and places I've seen be like, did you know that they were going to call Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle McRiddle? Yes. They said it on TV. I don't know why you're acting like this wasn't a thing that was announced on television. But it's annoying.
The sausage egg biscuit is so much better.
Please stop.
It really is. The other hot tag I got, though, these are kind of tied in together. Dax Harwood filed for a trademark of CMFTR, which, if you don't know what that is, that's the CM Punk plus FTR team, hence CMFTR. It's not just, stands for Cookie Monster or something. But for them to trademark that is pretty interesting, especially around the same time that there's lots and lots and lots more buzz that CM Punk could potentially be going back to WWE, with people reporting everything from he's going to host or be at the Chicago Survivor Series, that he may have something in mind for WrestleMania, or that maybe that's not even necessarily true and that it's completely made up from CM Punk's camp just to try to get the ball rolling, to try to get negotiations for something like that going forward. I'm kind of at a point right now where I'm like, I wouldn't anticipate that he would be coming back, but I'm starting to think he might.
I think he's coming back. What are you gonna say, Cal?
I was gonna say I'm pretty much on the train to suggest that he will come back in Survivor Series in Chicago. And
I really think it'll be Survivor Series. I don't think it's Survivor Series, but it could be.
I think Chicago makes sense for that to happen. I think that's the date that I'm currently like circling. If it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. But, and again, it's one of those things that I'll still just wait to believe it when I see it. But like, there's a lot of smoke generating, and usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think even if it doesn't happen, I think that they're at least broaching the idea now more than maybe they would have beforehand. I'd find it very hilarious for Cody Because there's all that speculation that he left one of the big reasons he left AEW was Punk's presence in the first place, and then he leaves to go to WWE, and then the guy follows him into the company. That's a pretty that'd be a pretty funny situation. And I'd also relish the all the tweets or Reddit posts or anything like that about all the stuff that CM Punk said about WWE, all those in between his hiatus from them and then him coming back, and then all of that stuff just flooding straight back into it, as he has to say that in 2014 I left sports entertainment, and 2023 I'm back. that kind of but yeah, I think the more I'm hearing about it, the more that I'm starting to believe that he probably will come back to WWE, and with this CMFTR trademark as well, he also gives me the suggestion that if Punk does go back, then FTR will be following him at their earliest convenience.
I don't know, because Edge is really close with him, so.
They can't, but can they call themselves FTR if they're in?
Why not?
They're in WWE.
They own FTR.
Or if they own FTR, then sure. Just will WWE want to call them FTR, or will they want to just go back to the Revival? In which case, do you call it CM Revival instead?
They gave Cody. They gave Cody everything he wanted.
I could see them doing the type of thing where hashtag FTR pops up on the screens and it's in their gear and all that stuff, but they're like, oh, that's for the Revival.
Forever the Revival.
Yeah, something like that. Never liked the name The Revival. Never liked the name The Mechanics either, but
I like The Revival. Honestly, I see Punk coming back. I think it's silly that every time there's a little bit of news, everybody's got to jump on the CM Punk train, but I see him coming back. And I think there's a really cool way to do it. There's a really cool way to have CM Punk sit in the middle of a ring in Chicago and say, guys, I thought I was a healed person, but it's very clear to me that I'm still sick, and now I need to actually eradicate the cancer, and I need to do that by finishing my story, wink, wink, and headlining WrestleMania and winning the WWE Championship. Now you're on a collision course of you've got all these guys that had all these personal reasons to want to headline Mania, and you have CM Punk back in WWE. And while he's not being a full-blown hypocrite, he's acknowledging, I didn't want to come back here, but it's clear that this is where I need to be to make myself right, kind of thing. Because I tried and I'm just not cured, in a way. I think if you do that, again, that's my fantasy booking, but if you do that, that'll be a lot of fun.
But do you put him against Roman or do you put him against Rollins?
Of course you put CM Punk against Roman.
And you bypass the Cody thing?
No, but that's all part of it. Three-way dances, triple threat's gonna happen. You can absolutely do that. It gets, Punk on the opposite of Heyman, and Punk can say things like, "You can't fool me. You're a snake. You were by my side, and you just want to leech off of me. I made you relevant again." You can play off the whole make Roman Reigns look strong. There's so much you can do with CM Punk and Roman Reigns that you can't do with CM Punk and Rollins.
Since we like to toss out stuff well in advance, just for the sake of it, and some people go back and check out previous podcasts and stuff, let's end this hot tags with just a prediction of if you think Punk is going to be at Mania and who you think he's going to go up against.
Main event of night one, if he's there, I'm going to say, just for the sake of playing the game, if he's there, main event of night one, Cody Rhodes.
Just in a non-title match?
Yeah.
What about you, Callum?
CM Punk versus Seth Rollins for the World Championship.
That's where I would go, with the idea in mind that Gunther is then fighting Brock. And then Cody is going up against Roman. Unless that Roman and Rock thing is so true that they've got Cody and Orton just like on the card. And it seems like, eventually we're going to reach a point where we're going to go, oh, this all makes sense, or no, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But obviously we'll talk more about that stuff down the line. And as we do all these other things in the future, we've got lots of plans in the works, things that are, the back burner, things that we're going to come back around to. We haven't done a mock draft in a while, but the game plan was to do one of those in October for the 5-year anniversary of Evolution. So we're going to try to do that in the next couple of weeks. We'll try to do that Pick a Poison for Guest 5, whether it's over on the Impact 1000 thing or if it's over on fanboysanonymous.com, where you can find all the sorts of other things that are happening on that end, including something that'll be coming up sometime in, eventually in November or so, which is the DC versus Marvel Survivor Series crossover. I have kind of figured out now a little bit of a game plan as far as I'm breaking that up into 2 videos. One's going to be on Smark Out Moment and one's going to be on Fanboys Anonymous. Night 2 is going to be Fanboys Anonymous. And you're going to get into what would happen if I were to book these superheroes in a Raw versus SmackDown kind of scenario. Something I put a lot of work into. I'm very excited to talk about that. Of course, you know about the Blueprint Project by now over on fanboysanonymous.com for everything on Star Wars and superhero stuff, Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, James Bond, blah, blah, blah. But of course, you can also just go to amangotree.com and you can find links to all sorts of different things from Smark Out Moment and Fanboys Anonymous and elsewhere, like my Letterboxd or Facebook and Twitter at Tony Mango. And make sure you're following these other guys too for all the stuff that they're working on.
Yep, you can follow me at Dude Felice. Everything I'm working on is on Fightful.com, WrestleZone.com as well. And yeah, I'll be here always, working on wrestling always. Callum?
Find me on Twitter at WeekMeister14. Check out the Power Rankings every Saturday over on smartcamo.com. And also, because it's Fastlane and the predictions matter, there will be the Fantasy League, where you can also find www.fantasyleague.com to see how our points are stacking up, how our teams are doing as we head into Fastlane, where our teams will change up a little bit, expand a little bit, and as we continue on the winding road to WrestleMania, and I wonder who will be the first person to add CM Punk to their fantasy team.
Well, I guess we'll find out. I would like to, but then again, I'm probably just going to lose no matter what.
And of course, if anything changes in the meantime, you can find updates to the Fastlane card over on smarkoutmoment.com. But tomorrow we will be doing the Pay-Per-Viewpoint post show, at least if I'm feeling good enough to be able to pull it off. Live coverage on smarkoutmoment.com. Post up on EWN as well. Adios for now. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.